We are only 1 week away from giving away this beautiful, beautiful custom etch binder. You might be saying, hey Fanny, what is that beautiful custom etch binder? Well, I'm glad you asked. This is the Fan Clan Master Set of Surging Sparks. This has every single card you could possibly pull from a booster pack. Every common, uncommon, reverse holo, holographic rare, ace spec, ultra rare, double rare, illustration rare, special illustration rare, including the Pikachu EX and Hyper Rare. It's all in here, and we're giving it all away to one lucky subscriber. Huge shout out again to the Unlucky Collector. Make sure to give him a follow on Instagram at the Unlucky Collector. He always designs these beautiful binders for us. We do this every single set. I'm really nervous about Prismatic Evolutions because that one's going to be daunting to give that one away. That's going to be tough. But we're 1 week away from announcing the winner of the Fan Clan Master Set for Surging Sparks. And if you're saying, Fanny, that's great, but how do I win? I'm also glad you asked that. All you got to do is make sure you're subscribed to the channel. So scroll on down. Do people use a mouse still? Do people still use a mouse? Just scroll on down on your phone or whatever you're using. Make sure you click that subscribe button, and then you're going to leave a like and a comment on this video right up here. This is a picture of the thumbnail. I'll put the link in the description down below. It's titled The Surging Sparks Master Set is Brutal or something like that. Make sure you leave a like and a comment on that video. Subscribe, like, and comment on that video. Boom, you are entered. We are going to announce the winner of the Fan Clan Master Set for Surging Sparks next Friday at the beginning of the video. With that being said, let's talk about Surging Sparks because we haven't talked about it in like 3 days, so we have to talk about it again. Yesterday, we talked more about growing your collection by not spending a ton of money. If you haven't watched that video, definitely give it a watch. I guarantee you'll get something out of it. It's about going through your bulk, going through cards that you probably have duplicates of, triplicates of, that are just collecting dust, and then moving off of those to help bring prices down because prices are getting a little bit out of control, and Surging Sparks is definitely one occurrence where some prices are getting out of control, but we can see that there is just massive amounts of Surging Sparks being opened because it is a giant race to the bottom when it comes to single pricing, and we're going to go over single pricing. We do this every single set release. We take screenshots of the TCG Player market price the morning of release day. So basically how TCG Player works, if you're not accustomed to it, if you are an authorized pre-order store, that means you're approved by TCG Player to sell pre-order singles, you can list your singles pretty much any time that TCG Player loads up their inventory. It can be before release day by a couple weeks, or it could be a few days before release day, but you can start loading up inventory right away so that way people can place pre-orders for singles. If you wanted that special illustration rare Pikachu EX, there were people who were pre-order selling that on TCG Player as long as they were authorized and approved by TCG Player for like $300. It's kind of where it started at, where it settled at prior to the release day. And then the morning of, you can begin loading your inventory for Surging Sparks pretty much any time, but the morning of is when it's like a free fall for whoever wants to sell on TCG Player. You don't have to be a brick and mortar store. You don't even have to have a reseller's license. You can sell on TCG Player. Anybody basically can do it. You just have to go through the approval process. And Friday morning, the release day of Surging Sparks, is when anybody and everybody can release their singles, and we saw quantities start uploading like crazy. So what we like to do is we like to take screenshots of the market price when it's settled on the morning of, so that way we can get a good understanding of where cards started at, and then a week later we look at them again to see what has gone up, what has gone down. Pretty much every single set release, you see drops. You see significant drops all over the place. It's usually around 30-40% for a lot of cards, unless it's a popular in-demand card. We've seen this especially with the last few sets with some of the harder to pull special illustration rares, or some of the more competitive cards staying relatively flat or going up quite a bit. For the most part, everything's going to drop a lot, but really a good indicator of a set's performance, how it has legs, how it's long-term going to be approved, or what people are going to think of it for the long haul. Really good to look at single pricing to see how significant these drops are. Sets like Battle Styles, for example, we had a lot of singles that dropped in the 70 percentile to the 80 percentile over opening week, and it looks like Surging Sparks is actually following more of that trend. There's a lot of really significant drops. So we're going to play a game, and you're going to let me know in the comment section down below, percentage-wise, which card do you think dropped the most over the first week of Surging Sparks release? It might surprise you. There's one card, I mean, there's a few cards that dropped over 80%, but one card in specific that almost dropped 90%, which is absolutely insane. I'm going to stop rambling. I'm going to flip you guys around. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about how Surging Sparks is doing as a sealed product. It's just insane right now. Quantities have not met demand. I think that's pretty obvious. There was a small restock that came for a lot of storefronts that quickly moved out, and now we have pricing. Now that that's kind of sold out, we start seeing pricing move above MSRP. This is a snip from TCG Player from just yesterday. It's up to $173.72 is the current market price. So over the past month, it's about 43.5%. Now this is going to be a good indicator of what we should start looking at when it comes to next year's main series sets. I don't think we're going to see quite the same buzz. I think we should be able to get that new Gym Challenge set, the owner's Pokemon set that's coming out in March. You should still be able to find relatively good deals on that, and even the Team Rocket set. As long as you pre-order a little bit in advance, you should be good to go. But we're looking at total sold on the bottom here over the past month, 3,771 booster boxes, with a good chunk of those being pre-order booster boxes. That's an insane amount, and 121 that are being sold on a daily basis is absolutely crazy. You can see very strong sales numbers over the past week, especially on November 9th, which is just after the day of release. Obviously, November 8th is the day of the release there. You can see over 300 booster boxes just selling on that day by itself, and then close to 150 to 200 being sold almost every single day after that. That's really caused the market to start moving up quite a bit, to the point where you're at $173, which unfortunately is a little bit above MSRP. We recorded a video a few days ago going over why you shouldn't open Surging Sparks, or why you should really think carefully before opening Surging Sparks. I don't want to discourage anybody from opening. Just be careful, and make sure you limit your expectations. Obviously, it'd be sweet to pull a special illustration rare Pikachu, but even if you pull some of the other special illustration rares, it's not going to outweigh the cost of the box. So make sure you're having fun, you're enjoying the artwork, you're enjoying the rip. That's kind of the big thing. Here are 3 cards over the set. There's not a whole lot of ancillary cards in the set that are doing extremely well. So you've got Terra Orb, which is probably the best trainer in the set as of right now. A lot of potential with it. We'll see if it does anything with Terrapagos. There's the Latin America International Championships going on this weekend. Unfortunately, Surging Sparks is not legal for that, so we won't really know how the meta is going to shift until we get major event details, major event data, starting with like Sacramento, I think is going to be the first one where Surging Sparks really becomes legal, the first major event, and then we might see some shifts in the meta, and we might start seeing some trainer cards or some A-specs going up a little bit. Brilliant Blender is the most expensive A-spec in the set. There's really just not a whole lot of noteworthy cards as of right now when it comes to Surging Sparks. So you're really, and that's the problem with this set, is you're really just hunting and gambling for that Pikachu SIR, or maybe that Latias SIR. It's not like Paldea Evolved, it's not like Paradox Rift, it's not even like Temporal Forces, where there's some trainer cards that can help cut down that average price per pack cost. So you've got Brilliant Blender there at $3.24, and you've got Precious Trolley above $2 at $2.06, which isn't bad considering the fact that most A-specs fall below $1 within the first week. So those are doing okay, but Surging Sparks Seal product in general moving extremely well. If we look at actual price drops for the first week, this first page doesn't look too bad, right? You've got that Pikachu SIR in the morning of release date was selling for $311.24. Now you can see the lowest one listed when I took this snip was $345, so it was already beginning its ascent. But right now, the current price point is $539.96. If you haven't pulled this, I would definitely wait for the dust to settle a little bit. This thing is going all over the place. It's extremely volatile right now. I understand it is difficult to pull special illustration rares, much more difficult than what it was with the beginning of the Scarlet and Violet block. Obviously, you could pull 2 in Scarlet and Violet base, Paldea Evolved, Obsidian Flames, and then things started changing a little bit, and then with Temporal Forces, pull rates became ridiculous. But you're still looking at a special illustration rare of about 1 out of every 65 packs. You compare that to an alternate art, which is about 1 out of every 108 packs, or even an alternate art VMAX, which is closer to 1 out of every 200 packs. It's insane to think that this is as expensive or more expensive than pretty much every single alternate art that has been printed so far in the Sword and Shield block, with the exception of that Umbreon VMAX, because pull rates are still going to be more attractive. So there is going to be a lot of Pikachu EXs opened. It's all going to be based off of demand. Obviously, there's a lot of hype in Pokemon right now. This might be a card, if you haven't pulled it yet, just keep chasing it a little bit. Don't overspend, but wait for the dust to settle before you make any big decisions. Obviously, it's already come down a little bit. $539.96 is where it's currently sitting. That's about 73.5% above where it was on release day. So still doing extremely well, despite the fact that it's down about $100 over the past 48 hours or so. Latias EX is the second most expensive special illustration rare in the set, coming in just below $200 on release day. It was sitting at $194 $64.85. It's been relatively flat. It did see some peaks and some valleys over the past week. It's up about 6.5%, currently sitting at $207.57. Again, very similar situation with that Pikachu EX. It's a very cool looking card. Beautifully, you can kind of connect it together with the Mesprit, with the Latios. It looks really cool. $207.57. I don't know if that's a justifiable price or not. That's obviously up to you, based off of what your demand level looks like and based off of what the community demand looks like, but it has gone up a little bit and stayed, for the most part, relatively flat, which is something that we don't really see, especially when a new set releases. And now we start getting some price drops. So the Lucia's Appeal, first of all, was the third most expensive card in the set when it originally released. So this is from last week, Friday in the morning. On release day, it was selling for $130.78. The current price point on this, $67.56. So it's lost almost half of its value over the first week, which is a fairly significant drop. A little bit more, I think, than what some people were expecting. It's down about 48.34%. Then we've got the Hydreigon EX. This one is actually doing a little bit better. So this one fell from 108.09 down to 83.39. So this one has overtaken that Lucia. It is now the third most expensive card in the set. It's dropped almost 23% over the first week, which really isn't that bad at all. Holding strong legs. I think that is because there is a lot of demand for some of these special illustration rares, including this Hydreigon EX. And then like it, the Melodic EX also having a very strong week. So it came into release day at $94.81, and it did drop a little bit, but you're only looking at about 15%, which is very respectable for the opening week when you consider how many boxes were sold, how many packs have been opened, and there's undoubtedly a lot of Melodic EX that have been pulled, but really not a lot of people selling them. So it hasn't dropped too much. You're looking at $80.40 is the current price point on it. Again, down about 15% from where it was on release day. The Alolan Executor EX special illustration rare. This was my chase card of the set. I love the artwork on it. I think it looks absolutely stunning. $82.36 was where it came out on release day. It's down to $48.83, so a fairly significant drop. Anytime you see something above 40%, that really is more of the norm, but still significant. You're looking at about 40.71% of a drop. It's down to $48.83. I would expect this one to keep falling a little bit more. Then we've got the Jasmine's Gaze. This one dropped a significant amount, so it's down 51.5% over the first week. It went from $72.95 on release day down to $35.40. The Hyper Rare Pikachu EX continues to make a lot of noise. This is another one. This one got bought up a little bit later than that special illustration rare one. It came out of the gates at $64.45, but Hyper Rare is much more difficult to pull than special illustration rares, and this Pikachu EX is actually really cool, so it's not really too surprising that it has jumped up too much. You look at it in comparable to the Hyper Rare that was printed in Vivid Voltage, very close as far as price points go. Obviously that one started out much higher because the hype was so much greater for that one, but this one climbed up to $125.88. Currently it's about 95% growth over the first week, so doing really strong. The Night Stretcher TCG Player continues, still does not have a picture for Night Stretcher for some reason. This is the gold Hyper Rare Night Stretcher, a very competitive card, very significant in competitive play. You can compare it to something like the Buddy Buddy Poffin, which we had, the Earthen Vessel. Those gold cards do extremely well. This one started out at $41.83. It has dropped 34.28%, so not too bad for its first week. So it's down to $27.49, which is not too bad at all. The Latios Illustration Rare, this is one of the few illustration rares that has actually gained a little bit of ground, and for the most part it's still relatively flat. It started out at $39.46. It's up to $40.41, so pretty flat. You're only looking about 2.5% growth on that one. Clement's Quick Wit took a huge drop over the first week. $36.46 is where it started. Now it's down to $15.06, so over half of where less than where it was on release day. The Archaludon EX special illustration rare, this one not bad, but it did come out of the gates a little bit lower. $31.58 is where it started. It's only dropped about 32.5%, which isn't terrible, down to $21.31. The Jet Energy, if this one does start seeing some better competitive play, right now it's not too great in competitive play, but Jet Energy, a very popular card when Lost Box was a big thing. $26.99 is where it started. It's all the way down to $13.66, so it's lost about half of its value opening week, down about 49.39%. The Pikachu EX Full Art Terra card is very flat opening week. $25.50 is where it started. It's sitting at $25.54 right now. Really reminds me of the Pikachu VMAX from Vivid Voltage and the Charizard VMAX from Darkness Ablaze as far as like the demand goes and things like that. It's probably going to start out and stay fairly consistent for quite some time, and then as more and more people open up Surging Sparks and the population of Pikachu EX Full Art Terra starts kind of going up a little bit, we should start seeing this card fall down a little bit more. Here's the Drayton Special Illustration Rare. This one dropped about 44.5%. It started out a little bit cheaper than some of the other SIRs. $25.34 cents is where it started. It's down to $14.06 currently. The Jasmine's Gaze is down 86.5% over opening week. I think this is the biggest drop. If you said Jasmine's Gaze full art, I think you're right. There might be one better than this, but it's either this one or one other one. It went from $24.39 all the way down to $3.28. Now, obviously, this is the full art. A lot easier to pull than the special illustration rare, but it started out much higher than I think a lot of people thought it was going to. $24.39. Now all of a sudden it's all the way down to $3.28. That is the picture of race to the bottom right there. 86.5% of a drop, which is crazy. The Cerulege illustration, this one doing really well. It's down about 28.5%, which isn't bad. Started out at $24.22. It's down to $17.29, so fairly strong opening week for Cerulege. The Durant EX special illustration rare, this one has not dropped that much at all. It's a relatively flat opening week, but it did start out significantly cheaper than a lot of the other special illustration rares. Started out at $22.85. Now it's down to $20.91. So only about 8.5% of a drop opening week. Then we've got the Gravity Mountain Secret Rare. This one started out a little bit more expensive at $22.70. It's down to $12.35 currently, so about 46% drop opening week. The Skarmory doing fairly well, but it did feature a pretty decent sized drop opening week. $22.38 is where it started. Now it's down to $12.83, so about 42.5% of a drop on that one. The Counter Gain, fairly substantial drop on this one as well. $18.99 is where it started. Now it's all the way down to $8.44, so about 55.5% of a drop on that one. The Full Art Lucia's Appeal, so not to be confused with the special illustration rare, this one dropped significant as well. It was $18.44 at the get-go. Now it's down to $7.81, so about 57.5% drop for that one. The Phoebus illustration rare, this connects with that Melodic EX special illustration rare, makes some really cool artwork. Started out a little bit more expensive at $16.85, and it was not able to hold at all. It's all the way down to $6.23, so a very large drop on this one, about 63%. Anytime you see a drop above 70%, that is super substantial opening week. It really speaks volume to the amount of product that's getting opened and also the demand for that specific card. So even a card like Flygon EX, which is a popular Pokemon, and even though they're doing better jobs with how they're designing the full art tarot cards, it was not able to help this Flygon EX have a good week. It started out at $12.86, and it's dropped over 75% down to $3.12. The Hydreigon EX, now there is a little bit of competitive playability with this card, so this card that could be part of what this one is going through. $11.76 is where it started. It's down to $7.87 currently, so about 33%, which is not that bad when you look at the Flygon EX as a counterpart. The Slack Off, about 50% drop opening week. $10.41 is where it started. Now it's sitting at $5.15. The Execute, I love this illustration rare. I think it looks really cool, and it's relatively inexpensive already. It's dropped about 56% opening week from $10.38 down to $4.54. The Palisand got destroyed. This poor sandcastle. $9.67 is where it started at an opening day. And the pull rates for full art tarot cards aren't great. They're not bad, but they're not like amazing. And that just really shows you how much product is being opened, that there's so much on the market. $9.67 is where this started. It's already basically a bulky X. It's dropped down to $1.46. So about 85% of a drop on this one. 84.9%. That's crazy. Alolan Dugtrio was $9.43. This is cool. Same artwork as the Pinsir illustration rare. Dropped from $9.43 down to $4.29. So that's about a 54.5% drop. The Archaludon EX definitely has some playability, hopefully. Started out at $9.16, but unfortunately not a whole lot that goes along with the artwork on this one. Not a whole lot of excitement, and because of that, it's dropped about 72%, which is very substantial, down to $2.55. Then we've got the Clobopus. This one not doing great. Unfortunately, it's down about 57%. It went from $8.94 down to $3.86. The Latias EX Full Art is doing fairly well. It's only about a 32% drop so far, from $8.91 down to $6.08. The Surfer Full Art has dropped almost 80%, which is huge. $8.90. Remember the days, it always seemed like full art supporters did extremely well. Now they just do not do well anymore. From $8.90 all the way down to $1.82. The Kecleon illustration rare, this one's dropped about 45%, so fairly normal for an illustration rare, from $8.30 down to $4.53. The Pikachu EX regular art. Now part of this is going to be collectability, but part of this is also competitive playability. $8.04 down to $7.87, so a very flat opening week, down about 2%. We'll see what happens once it starts to getting played. If it does well, it wouldn't surprise me if it started creeping up a little bit in price, so pay attention for that one. The Appleton illustration rare, a little bit more of the average drop for an illustration rare. It went from $7.91 down to $3.55. That's a 55% drop. Then we've got the full art Alolan Executor. This one went from $6.74 down to $2.81. So that's about a 58% drop on that one. The Cerulege EX has a very cool attack with that Abysmal Flames. Pair it up with an A-Spec. You can load up your discard pile with some fire energy, and you might be able to hit for a lot really early in the game. $6.54 up to $7.41. So this one actually gained about 13% opening week. Again, it's going to depend on how it does in competitive play to determine whether or not this goes down further or creeps up a little bit. Then we've got the Titan illustration rare. This one dropped about 64%. This one got destroyed pretty good. $6.48 down to $2.33. The Mesprit, one of the few illustration rares that's been relatively flat. It didn't start out very expensive though. $6.48 down to up to $6.56. The Drayton full art, that one dropped 71.22%. So that one got hit pretty hard from $6.08 down to $1.75. The Stunfisk got absolutely destroyed, that poor fish. $6.05 all the way down to $1.17 for an illustration rare, which is crazy. A pull rate of like 1 out of 300 packs, and it's already selling for basically $1, down about 81% opening week. The full art Clement's Quick Wit, this one dropped 73.5%. You've got a full art supporter right here for $1.50, coming down from $5.67. So about 73.5% drop on that one. The Bravery illustration rare, not too bad of a drop for an illustration rare, down about 32.5% from $5.60 down to $3.78. Same thing with the Sfeel, not bad as far as the drop goes, down about 29.5%. It's from $5.49 down to $3.86. The last three that we're going to look at, the Drasna full art, that one got destroyed, down almost 73% from $5.44 down to $1.48. The Vivillin went from $5.41 down to $2.28. That's a 57.5% drop, or almost 58%. And then the Black Kyurem EX. I actually really like the artwork on this one. This one dropped from $5.21 down to $3.33, so about 36% of a drop on that one, which is not too bad. But there's a lot of cheap cards in Surging Sparks. If you're having a hard time finding Surging Sparks product to rip, definitely look at the singles. The singles market, definitely where it's at when it comes to a lot of full arts, a lot of illustration rares. You can really start working on your master set by spending pennies compared to what the sealed product is. Obviously, it's a lot of fun to rip, and I get that, but just don't blow through all your collection budget trying to find that special illustration rare Pikachu when you can knock off a lot of really cheap cards before even worrying about that Pikachu SIR. Let the dust settle on that one and work on some of these other ones. So very substantial for a lot of these, which speaks volume to how much product of Surging Sparks has been opened up already. A lot. So I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did, please hit that subscribe button down below. Leave a like, leave a comment. It goes a really long way for the algorithm, but thank you just for being here and letting me talk. I love you guys. You guys are awesome. Every day, I can't believe I get to do this. So thank you so much. We'll be back on Sunday with another video. Until next time, peace.